Hey, what's going on YouTube? It's your man Soul here. Welcome back to the channel. You know what it is when you clicked it. Today we're talking about my plans for Wrath of the Lich King Classic, my leveling path, what class I'm going to be playing, what spec I'm going to be playing, so on and so forth. So if you are new to the channel and at the end of the video, if you like what you see, please consider liking and subscribing. You know, I'll be dropping content pretty much on a regular basis. As regular as I can be. And if you are returning to the channel, I thank you. Thank you for watching. Thank you for commenting. Thank you to all the new subscribers. Making it down that long road to 1K wouldn't be possible without you guys. But without further ado, let's jump on in. All right, let me get comfortable here. So when Wotlk Classic does release, I will be retiring my Druid tank and I will be swapping to the Death Knight tank. Now, I'm not a bandwagon guy. I've been playing Death Knight for years, so before you get a hand cramp typing out I'm a wagon fan, slow your roll. I started playing Death Knight when original Wrath released, and I was a Death Knight for years, so we can just chill on all that. I will say this, because I have an Unholy build set up in front of you, this obviously means that I will be leveling as Unholy, but I will be leveling as an Unholy tank.
You what?
Now, this is a talent build that I kind of created. Not really created, like I'm not the originator of this, but it's my own variance of just some talent points, and I'm going to go through them. I didn't want to turn this video into a talent point video, but I don't mind going through it really quickly, just kind of showing what I picked, what I didn't pick, what I'm doing, so on and so forth. I'll do the same thing with my my Nax Blood spec. I'll show you what I'm doing, I'll show you what I'm not doing, so on and so forth, and you know, just talk about how and why I'm going to be talenting certain things. Why Unholy tanking though? So when Wrath releases, obviously it's going to be a popular expansion. Mad people played Wrath back then. It was the highest point for Blizzard at the time for a while, right? I don't think it's going to get to that level, but Wrath was pretty popular, so that means even though there's two leveling points, being the Borean Tundra and the Howling Fjord, those realms, or those areas I should say, are pretty small, so there's definitely going to be some bottlenecking. In a attempt to avoid some of the bottlenecking, I'm going to gather, you know, a 5-man group from my guild. We're going to go into do some dungeon grinding. So while people are, you know, questing and stuff like that, we'll be dungeon grinding, hopefully avoiding a lot of the bottlenecking that's going to happen. And then this way, once we're like 72, 73-ish, we go out, do some questing. 74, 75-ish might do another dungeon, come out, do some questing. 77, 78-ish, do some dungeon grinding, so on and so forth, right? And I'm not on the beta, I can't thoroughly test this out, but I think that is, if it's not optimal, it might be near optimal. Like I think dungeon grinding, I think a combination of dungeon grinding and leveling traditionally through quests is definitely a way you can do it, and that's what I'm choosing to do. So that's why I'm doing Unholy tanking. But you might be asking yourself, why Unholy tanking? Well, you could do it as any spec really. Death Knight is really strong at that. I will say for dungeon tanking, you could definitely do Blood, you could definitely do Frost, you could definitely do Unholy. The reason why I picked Unholy is because I think Unholy is the best for big AoE pulls. Like, they do a lot of damage, and you'll clear dungeons a lot quicker with an experienced Unholy tank. And that's because of two talents. The first being Wandering Plague. If you don't know, Wandering Plague is a deep Unholy talent where your diseases, based off of your melee critical strike chance, will proc extra damage, dealing 100% extra damage to enemies within 8 yards. So what this means is if you pull like a mass pull and you hit your diseases and you hit pestilence on everything, whatever your melee critical strike chances, let's say it's 25%, those mobs have a 25% to tick for an additional damage and damage each other around them. It's an incredible talent. It's really good for just mowing down mobs in conjunction with the actual DPS in your raid group. So that's number one. Number two, we have Ebon Plague, right? So Ebon Plague is the Death Knight equivalent of like Earth and Moon. It's the spell damage debuff for the raid or party group. But what also it is it's a disease. So being that it's a disease, it also interacts with Death Strike. And if you don't know, Death Strike will heal you for 5% of your maximum health per disease on the target. If you take Ebon Plaguebringer, you'll have 3 diseases. So you'll be healing yourself for 15% of the damage done. So it's really important because you don't have things like Will of the Necropolis, you don't have Rune Tap, you don't have Vamp Blood. you need a way to help be tanky. So using Death Strike with Ebon Plaguebringer up really will help you be tanky. So that's the reasons why I chose Unholy. But let's jump into the actual individual talents, and I'm going to go through them quickly. I'm not going to drag it. I promise. I'm not going to drag it. We're going to talk about Unholy. We're going to talk about Blood, and yeah, we're going to move on. So let's do that. So generally, when I do talent build videos, I go through every single talent, especially like for tanks and healers. I go through every single talent, even the ones I don't take. I talk about the intricacies, whether you should take them or not, whether there are builds out there that use them. And I do the whole explanation. For this video, I'm not going to do that. I am going to go through all the talents, but I'm not going to, explain every single one. I'm just going to talk about the ones I didn't take, the ones I did take, why, and, how they would work. So to start, let's start out with the ones that I didn't take. First things first is Vicious Strike. So this just increases the critical strike chance and damage bonus of your Plague Strike by 6 and 30% respectively. Because we don't take Scourge Strike, so I don't count that. So that's why I just said Plague Strike. Plague Strike is like a pretty weak hitting ability, so increasing the critical strike chance and damage isn't bad, but we're really only using Plague Strike to put up diseases. We're not we're not hitting it over and over and over. You know what I mean? It's Plague Strike then Pestilence. You know what I mean? Or Icy Touch, Plague Strike, Pestilence. So you really don't need this talent. And because we're Unholy anyway, you want to save these talent points for later usage. So we'll get to that when I start talking about talent points that I took. But anyway, yeah, you can skip Vicious Strikes. Kind of the same vein really for these three here, like Outbreak, Necrosis, and Blood Cake Weapon. Again, Outbreak increasing the damage of Plague Strike, it doesn't really matter. Like these two combined are great single target talents, but we're AoE tanking. We don't really care about that, right? You know what I mean? Same thing with Necrosis and Blood Cake Weapon. These increasing the damage of your auto attacks. One that does shadow damage every time you auto attack, and the other that just increases the damage of auto attacks per disease you have on an enemy. So like I said, all four of these, I should say, are really good talents when you're actually an Unholy DPS, but because we're tanking, not really the most desirable talents. Same thing with Unholy Blight. Great DPS talent, not so much of a tank talent. Moving on down, we have Desecration. So Desecration I could have picked if I needed more control in a specific dungeon, or if I didn't have control in my party. I'm pretty sure I know who's going to be with my leveling group, so I don't need this. You could take it, like especially in a tough dungeon with like tougher pulls, like Jack Down Keep. Some of the mob pulls can get pretty sketchy. Halls of Lightning, Halls of Stone. Some of those mobs can get pretty sketchy. So yeah, you could take it if you really needed another slow, but you can skip that shit. AMZ, I hate AMZ. I hate this iteration of AMZ. It's a good PvP talent, but the absorb threshold in PvE to me is just useless. Not useless, it's just so, it could be so much better. So you can skip AMZ. Like, I don't think AMZ is gonna really be that impactful in your dungeon leveling. And then the last skip is Scourge Strike. So yeah, if we were Unholy DPS, definitely take Scourge Strike. But because we're not, because we're gonna be really using Death Strike as our main 2-rune spender, we don't really need Scourge Strike. So you can skip Scourge Strike. And that's really it for the ones that I skipped. Now we can talk about the ones that I did take. So Virulence is pretty obvious. I want that 3% hit. Like the Dispel Protection, cool, whatever. That 3% hit is going to be good, especially when I'm at 70 and like I'm, tanking mobs higher than me and I really don't have the hit that I need. So definitely take Virulence. Anticipation of flat 5% up to your avoidance. Great, especially when I'm really not a real quote unquote tank. Like I'm a tank, but I don't have Vamp Blood, I don't have Will of Necropolis, I don't have Rune Tap, I don't have Spell Deflection, so Anticipation increasing avoidance is great. Ravenous Dead, self-explanatory, your strength and your ghoul's power is great. Morbidity, this talent, I love this talent, especially for like AoE pulling. Morbidity reducing the cooldown of D&D by 15 seconds is so huge. Even in raids, like in Nax, I'm going to be using this talent. Especially when you combine it with Glyph of D&D, which increases the damage by 20%. So amazing. I definitely would recommend taking this talent and this Glyph. Epidemic, just increasing your duration of your diseases. Great, don't gotta explain that one. On a Pale Horse is more just utility for really, I think, outside of the instance when you're moving from instance to instance and you just want to move there, get there a little bit quicker. Sure, it does shorten the duration of stun and fear effects. That's not bad, but I really more look at this as just mount speed. Next, we have Night of the Dead. Is going to reduce the cooldown of Raised Dead and Army of the Dead and reduce the damage your pet takes from AoE. This is just a means to get down to the other two, but it's still a good talent, so definitely pick that up. Same thing with Dirge and Impurity, increasing the spell power coefficient to attack power was great, and Dirge giving you more runic power when you use Death Strike or Plague Strike. Gotta love that. Moving on down, so Magic Suppression. You don't have to take Magic Suppression. You can take this talent point and put it elsewhere. I took it because, again, I want to be a little bit more tanky. Even though, like I said, I'm going to be in a pre-made group. I know my healer. We're going to be in Discord. We're going to be communicating, but I still don't want to make his job, horrible. So I want to, be as tanky as I can be. The 2% less magic damage is low, but it's nice. It's not super impactful, but it's okay. The additional 8% absorb from AMS is really, really good. So definitely take. I like it. If you don't have to definitely take it, but you could. I like it. Reaping. This is really good when you use Pestilence. You turn your blood runes to death runes. Death runes can be used on any ability to count as any rune. So it's really good. I think you should max out Reaping. Night of the Dead makes your pet permanent. I don't have to explain that. Take it. Or not. This is not Night of the Dead. This is Master of Ghouls. That's Night of the Dead. Silly soul. Anyway, Master of Ghouls makes your pet permanent. Don't skip this. Ghoul Frenzy. You could skip it. I took it because I want to still do some damage when I'm fighting bosses. Like, I don't have Scourge Strike, right? So I want to be able to do something. So I think Ghoul Frenzy is a pretty good little micro cooldown for when you're fighting bosses. You don't have to take this. You can take this talent point and put it into Desolation. I just took it just to give myself a little micro cooldown. Improved Unholy Presence. So this is a fun fact. You don't have to have Unholy Presence to benefit from this talent. I don't know if they changed that on the beta. I don't have access to the beta, but I know for a fact early in beta testing, if you took this talent and you weren't 70 and didn't have Unholy Presence, it would still give you the movement speed increase in Frost or Blood. And because we're going to be tanking in Frost, moving faster, especially indoors, is great. So it's going to increase your speed throughout the dungeon. You can do faster pulls, more pulls, etc., etc. So I think you should take Improved Unholy Presence. Desolation just is a damage boost. Your blood strikes cause you to deal 2% more damage to all attacks. This coincides very well with AoE tanking and all of the AoE damage you're going to be doing, so I don't really got to explain that one. Crypt Fever is really good, increases the disease damage on targets, but we really take Crypt Fever just to get to Ebon Plaguebringer. I already explained Ebon Plague, I already explained Wandering Plague. These is what you really want. I forgot to mention in the Ebon Plague section that it also increases your critical strike chance with weapons and spells by 3% at all times. Pretty sure that secondary effect fuels the proc chance of Wandering Plague. So yeah, these two are really good. And definitely can't forget about Bone Shield. Now, I will say this. If you're taking a lot of mobs, chances are you're going to be running through charges a lot, right? You're going to be running through charges a lot. But it's still important to take this. It's still a pretty decent cooldown. It increases your damage by 2% and reduces damage you take by 20% from all sources. I think it's really, really good. You could definitely take Bone Shield. But like I said, if you're pulling a lot of mobs, chances, and you're not like parrying and dodging them, chances are you're going to be running through this charge system really quickly, I should say. And then finally we have Rage or Rivendare. This is just a good penultimate talent. Most penultimate talents are good. Take this one. Over in the Frost Tree, Toughness for more tankiness. I like that. Improved Icy Touch for more single target threat. That's good. And I love Icy Reach. Increasing the range means I can pull ahead. I can keep pulling and not slow down. I don't have to run closer to a mob. I like Icy Reach, right? And then last but not least in the Blood Tree, we have Blade Barrier again, making myself more tanking when my blood runes are on cooldown. I take 5% reduced damage for the next 10 seconds. Pretty self-explanatory. That's really it for my Unholy tank build. Like this is pretty much it. And as you level, require level 70. As you level, you can start filling out some of the ones that you care about. Like I'm probably gonna fill out Rage of Rivendare. I'm gonna fill out Desolation. You know what I mean? I'm gonna fill out Toughness and Icy Touch and stuff like that. Probably get Bladed Armor too. So yeah, you can definitely do this. I would even say even at 80, like when you're tanking, level 80 dungeons, maybe heroics. I don't know. You could just, run the Unholy tank thing full course. Like you can just max out this. You can take that, max this out, and then, yeah, you could do something like that. So you could let the whole Unholy thing run its course. At that point though, I'm probably just gonna go straight to Blood. I'm not gonna even mess around. Like I'm just gonna go straight to Blood, start getting my Blood gear ready. Because you gotta remember, when you hit 80, that's when all through the leveling system, you're probably collecting dodge and parry gear or some pieces, so you're not going to have those stats, so it really doesn't make too much sense. You could do it if you want, but once I hit 80, I'm going Blood, and I'm going to be Blood from then to the end of time probably. So that's really it though for the Unholy tanking and leveling setup. And now we can talk about the Blood setup. Hey, what's going on, guys? Future Soul here. So there's one thing that I failed to mention in the Unholy section of this video that I want to bring light to, and that is Corpse Explosion. So Corpse Explosion is a very fun button to press, and basically what it does is it explodes a corpse that's next to you for shadow damage. Doesn't work on mechanicals or elementals. This is a really powerful talent, especially if you're dungeon grinding and you're gonna have, you know, ample bodies next to you that you can, you know, readily explode, and it does a good amount of AoE damage. Now, taking this does come at a cost. Now, you can either take the talent point out of Ghoul Frenzy and put it here, but if you want both, you can take the talent out of Desolation, put one in Ghoul Frenzy, one in Corpse Explosion. However, reducing the power of Desolation, it will also reduce the damage you can deal with Wandering Plague. Remember that, because this increases all damage by, you know, a percentage after a blood strike. So obviously if you're increasing your damage by 1%, you're going to increase the damage of Wandering Plague, so just keep that in mind. I know in my, I guess past in the past soul is running something like this, where I have 2 in here, I'd have 1 in Ghoul Frenzy, and then this was skipped. You can make this talent point interchangeable just depending on what you want, and depending on the dungeon. Like if there's a lot of trash, you could definitely run Corpse Explosion. If it's something like Violet Hold, where the trash it's not a lot, it's not large groups, it's like at most you're taking like 4 mobs, then you could just get Ghoul Frenzy and just nuke down bosses really quick. So yeah, I just want to bring light to Corpse Explosion. Other than that, carry on and enjoy the video. Alright, so this is the blood build that I'm going to be using in Nax, more or less. Like, there are some talent swaps I'll talk about briefly, but this is pretty much it. And without sounding too redundant and like repeating the entirety of my old blood tank talent build video, I am going to go through some of the talents. Again, I'm not going to drag it. I promise you guys I wouldn't drag it, but let's just start. So a lot of the blood talents are pretty much staples. Maxing out Blade Barrier, max out Bladed Armor, 2 out of 3 Scent of Blood. You can go 3 out of 3 here if you want. I do 2 out of 3. Definitely pick up Rune Tap and improve Rune Tap. Definitely picking up, you don't have to definitely pick it up, but I like to pick up Dark Conviction, max out Death Room Mastery, definitely, max Spell Deflection, max Veteran Third Ward, definitely Abomination's Might. Bloody Strikes, I see some people skip this one. You can skip it. I choose to take it because, not really for the blood strike damage or the heart strike damage, because I skip heart strike and blood strike is negligible. It's really for the blood boil. So when your death then decays on cooldown, blood boil can still keep mobs on you, and increasing the damage by 30% is no small amount. 30% is a lot, so that's why I choose to take Bloody Strike. You can skip it and put, you know, these 3 talents somewhere else if you want. I just think it worked best here, my opinion, you know. But moving on, yep, definitely taking Hysteria, Vamp Blood, Improved Death Strike, and Wielding Necropolis. Do want to say one thing before I move on. People seem to get really bent out of shape that I don't take two-handed weapon spec. I guess bent out of shape is a little bit harsh, but like they question it, and I get it because it looks like a talent that you should take, right? The issue is, for blood tanking, nothing will do more threat than Icy Touch and Frost Presence. So increasing my weapon damage doesn't really do much for my single target threat if I already lobbed Icy Touches into the target already. I already have as much threat as I'm gonna get. Like, doing 4% more damage with a weapon doesn't really do anything. Now, if I'm going for like a blood tank DPS parse, sure, you might take that. That's not what I'm here for. Not in the beginning anyway. Like this talent build is probably gonna look completely different if I'm building like a talent build that wants to get legendary parses as a blood tank in the DPS, right? But just for tanking, you can skip two-handed weapon specialization. But skipping that talent always comes up in some way, shape, or form, and it gets back to me, and I just want to double down that you don't really need it. Icy Touch is how you get single target threat. Don't worry about not having 4% more weapon damage. It's not going to do anything for you. In the Frost Trees, same thing. Things are pretty much the same staples. Improved Icy Touch is definitely a no-brainer. Toughness is a no-brainer. I choose to take Icy Reach. You can choose to take Black Ice if you want. I've even seen some people take Nerves of Cold Steel if they're dual wield tanking. Quick thing on dual wield tanking too. You can dual wield tank weapons. This is another thing that kind of goes hand in hand with the two-handed weapon spec talent. Like, weapons for Death Knights are just stat sticks. You care about how much stamina they got, the defensive stats they got. If it has armor, some one-handed weapons have armor, but that's what you care about. You don't care about how much haste it has. You don't care about how much crit it has. You're not a DPS. You're a tank. You care about defense, hit, expertise, stamina, and more stamina, right? So if you happen to have 2 good one-handed weapons like the Red Sword of Courage from Utgard Pinnacle, that's a good starter off phase 1 pre-raid bis. Or if you have Last Laugh from Kel'Thuzad, like those, you can dual wield those in blood tanking and be fine. So the thing about dual wielding versus two-handed weapons for blood is just what you can get your hands on. If you have a great two-handed weapon, stick with it. If you have two great one-handers, dual wield. It just depends on what you got. But moving on, taking improved icy talons and taking rank 3 killing machine, right? Over here in the unholy tree, there's a lot of flexibility here. I think the only thing that's not flexible in my opinion is morbidity. I wouldn't sacrifice any talents points out of morbidity. I would always max this one out because shaving off 15 seconds off of D&D is very, very, very impactful, especially when you're dungeon pulling, or if you in a raid like Naxxramas with a lot of trash. Shaving off 15 seconds is really impactful, especially when you're using the glyph of D&D to increase your damage with D&D by 20%. Very, very strong. Very strong, keeps your pulls consistent and quick. That's the only thing I wouldn't sacrifice. Now the other ones you can, so depending on where my hit levels are, hopefully I won't have to max out of virulence and I can like go in more into anticipation, right? Because ideally I would want my build to look kind of like this. I don't want to take virulence. I will if I have to, but I want to max out my avoidance, max out my disease uptime, and get morbidity, right? Because blood tanks are kind of squishy in the beginning of Wrath, like in phase 1 Wrath, like prop paladins show up a lot of the main tanking properties. Blood tanks, like if you're speedrunning and you have like the minimal gear possible, blood's probably not going to be your main tank. I'm probably going to operate as a main tank. I'm going to do my best. So this is probably closer to a talent spread in the unholy subspect of what I'm looking at. But if I do need the hit, I would do something like this. So this way I get the best of both worlds. I have 2% hit, I have 4% dodge instead of 5%. I increase my disease duration by 3 seconds, and I still have max morbidity. Something like this, but it just depends on what I want. If you're asking why I'm not running double aura, it's because in my personal raid group, I know that we're going to have a Frost DK and an Enhanced Shaman, so I'm not going to need to take this, especially with Enhanced Shaman, right? So I'm not going to need to take this. If those guys weren't there, then obviously I would take it in a 10-man build, like maybe on my second spec, I'll run a 10-man with double aura, but that's why I'm not taking it. I could, if you don't want to go into the unholy subspec and you want to go deeper into the frost subspec, you could. I think not having morbidity for phase 1 will just make your pulls feel a little more clunkier. That's what you'll be a lot slower. You'll have to rely on your other tank to pull a little bit more for you. But that's really it. So this is the blood spec. The glyphs are the same. D&D, disease, dark command can be swapped out for vamp blood. Like if you're doing Patrick, or if you're doing like another hard hitting fight, you can swap dark command out for vamp blood. You can swap out glyph of disease. You can swap. These are pretty interchangeable. I would say this one is like high priority. This one is secondary priority. You can really swap out glyph of disease, because if you're hitting one thing, you're always going to be refreshing your diseases, so it doesn't really matter, right? But if I don't need the hit or the successful chance from the taunt, I can swap that one out. Other than that, you can swap out glyph of disease. If you really don't need the AoE damage, then you can swap out D&D, but I like this one. But this is really it for my blood Nax tanking build. And I think this is gonna work. If you want to copy it, by all means, take a screenshot and copy it. If you think that I'm crazy for not going deeper into the frost tree and getting frigid dreadplate and glacier rot, then you are more than welcome to get those talents. But this is what I'm going to be using, and this just kind of culminates my overall path for what I'm doing in terms of Wrath leveling, what I'm playing, and how I'm going to be playing it. And that's really it for the video, guys. I guess this kind of did turn out to be a talent build video, more so than a discussion video. Now, we still cover some discussion stuff. It's a discussion video. It's a solo discussion. It's not a talent build. We're going to get to some real Unholy and Frost talent builds later, but that's really it. These are my plans for Wotlk Classic. If you like the video, please consider liking and subscribing. I'm going to be dropping content as regularly as I can. And obviously likes and subscribes help the channel grow, help me get down this long road to 1K, and then we can really get it rocking. But as always, guys, you've been great. I've been Soul, and I'm out. Peace.